Hello, everyone. My name is Amar Singh. Welcome to my podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Nuts Royale, www.nutsroyale.com. The website should be up and running soon. This is a family business that we just started. If you've never had a sprouted nut, you are in for a treat. These nuts have been sprouted, meaning they've been soaked to remove the phytic acid and then slowly dehydrated. So essentially it is still a raw nut, but more nutritious without the phytic acid that can play havoc on your stomach. So please check us out on the website. Now, today's podcast is on allergies. If you're suffering allergies or if you know anyone that's suffering from an allergy, this podcast is definitely for you. We will be speaking to a gentleman by the name of Roy Nambudripad. His mom wrote a book on allergies, and we're going to be discussing that today. I am not a doctor. This is for entertainment purposes only, so you will never get medical advice from me or any professional advice from me. Please seek out a professional if that's what you are looking for. And thank you for being here. Let's jump right into this interview. Natural medicine, alternative medicine, call it yeah. And being an older dad, I've got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. I want to stay healthy and happy and, keep working.
Yeah, I have a 9-year-old son myself. He's going to turn 10 actually in a couple of months. But
Oh, awesome. Good for you. You only have the one child?
yeah, just one son. Yeah, my wife said that's enough.
Yeah. And you live in California, correct?
Yes, we live in Fullerton, which is 5 minutes away from Disneyland.
Okay, gotcha. Is that, I don't know where that is. Is that close to LA?
Yeah, it's about 40 minutes south of Los Angeles, like downtown Los Angeles.
Okay, gotcha. Great. And
Yeah.
were you born there?
Yes, I was born closer by Los Angeles, actually. Okay. And then when I was about 1 year of age, there was a fire actually right next to our house. And that's when my mom, actually, Dr. Davy, the one who kind of developed all of this, actually, she at the time was studying. And she was studying chiropractic as well as acupuncture school, and also at the same time working as a nurse. Can you imagine? She's a very hardworking person. Yeah, even now at the ripe old age, she's still working hard on research and doing all. She doesn't like interviews or anything, but she'll just do the grunt work. She sends me out on missions for interviews and things like this. But she decided to move to this area that we're living in now, basically a different city, but close by. And we have been there pretty much ever since. I ended up going to college, medical school, and doing my residency as well in Irvine, which is even a little bit more south than where I am now.
Gotcha.
I met my wife when I was finishing my residency, and then we ended up staying here. And instead of going general medicine route after I got my license and finished my training, I decided to take over my mom's business because I saw how great it was becoming, and she needed help. And it's still sort of like a family business.
Gotcha.
As you said, this word we use, alternative medicine. I don't like that word either, but it unfortunately, a lot of people. It's hard to be in that business. There's not a lot of support.
No.
Insurance companies don't support us. Hospitals think
there's let's call it what it is. There's no money in it.
Yeah, no money, exactly. So for my mom, especially, on her own, it is very daunting task to try to build out this sort of empire of things. So she didn't have much support. So I was helping her, and she could trust me, of course. And so I've been since 2009 or so. I've been fully focused on NAET, is what we call it, Nambudripad's allergy elimination techniques. In the last 5 years, actually, we have now transitioned fully to online seminars.
Oh, wow.
Teaching people all over the world, in Canada, as well as even in Iraq. We have a medical doctor in Iraq, believe it or not. We have never even met her, but she took the course and she's treating all these kids and getting great results. It's amazing. It's unbelievable in a war-torn country, And when I see a lot of that, it gives me a lot of hope. And when I see things like this, interviews, and when I see you and everything, it makes me realize that actually I think we're on the right track. You know, we are on the focus of truth. There's a lot of stuff in the way, but I think in
It's
the
funny,
end,
if I can
get there.
interrupt you for a second, that
Yeah.
for me, that's the new norm I'm projecting into the world, right? The new norm is, eating, good foods, not quick
Yeah.
not quick GMO foods because it's easy, right?
Right. Right.
Non-GMO foods, taking care of your body and eating the right, vitamins and so on. So for me, that's the new normal, not, putting stuff into your body that shouldn't be there in the first place. Sorry. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and in that regards, the other great thing about the type of medicine that I do is it's more holistic. We also include the mind. So you say about eating the right foods, but actually if you have NAT, you as a patient, you'll understand there's a lot of emotional aspects too involved in general health, which standard medicine, Western medicine, doesn't really, they separate it out, by organ, and there's a psychiatrist involved with the mind, but they don't even really help with this connection. Whereas the type of medicine we are talking about is integrated. As you're eating your food, you need to have the right mindset when you eat as well. That's
right.
A lot of people don't talk about that, and a lot of these concepts are so foreign to the general average person out there.
Well, it's funny you say that about food. I'm going to share something with you. I'll let you continue a second. Did you ever see the video, Dr. Emoto's experiment on water, and when he speaks to the water and then he
Yes, I've heard of this. Yes.
So that changed a lot for me when I realized that the energy you give off, and there's a direct correlation with water, and we're 70% water. My family and I, we actually say a prayer before we eat.
We do too.
And just to bless the food and so on and so forth, right? And for me, even if it doesn't work, let's just say Dr. Emoto is full of shit or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel better doing it.
Yeah, right. It's more practical.
So that for me alone, that's worth it. I could care less about anything else. But if it does exist and it is helping my body and helping my environment, then that's a bonus. But I feel good when I say a prayer with my family. Sorry.
Continue. Yeah, and that's great because your children are also learning that, so as they grow up, they're going to go through tough experiences, as we all do. And when they have this sort of education that you're giving them, that can help ground them when you're not around. They can go to that. So you're actually passing on a technique to the next generation.
Yeah, it's funny because
as well. Mm-hmm.
Your son does the same thing.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah. So, he gets upset when we if we start rushing into the food. He's like, "Mom, Dad, we need to stop and we need to do our prayer." Like, okay.
Isn't that funny? My daughter is the same way, and my daughter will actually say, "Dad, I want to say a prayer." So even after I've said it, my 6-year-old daughter, and our way of praying is just to give gratitude, right?
Yeah.
We don't beg for anything, A wise man once told me, "Don't be a beggar, just be grateful." Right. So we we're grateful for the healthy food and the healthy life, right?
So, and part of it with the NAET, transitioning to the NAET side of things, that's helpful because it actually is a very big part of what we do. Because with NAET, the concept is that your mind can subconsciously associate traumas with things that you touch or eat. So, for example, if you're driving a car and eating an apple at the same time, and you suddenly get in a car accident, or even touching the leather steering wheel, let's say, made of leather, and you get in a car accident, and then the next following week or days, you start getting headache anytime you smell the leather or you eat the apple, and you're not aware of why that's happening, but it's sort of like a trigger that happens when you touch that. This same concept can be applied to when we're eating our food. If we're arguing and fighting when we're eating our food, then the next day, even if we're not arguing or fighting, if you eat that same food, you can sometimes trigger issues physiologically in the body.
Now, have studies ever been done? Because I know my skeptical friends and family, when they hear stuff like that, You know, my favorite new, and I'm being facetious, new
Yeah,
phrase is
right.
follow the science, right?
Yes,
So
yes, no, right. It's a good question. I'm not completely sure about all the human studies that have been done reproducing this kind of a trauma with eating food. It would be almost unethical, but also hard to reproduce it
gotcha.
in a blinded study, because by definition, blinding the study means you do not know what that is, right?
Okay.
So it's almost like it would have to be a retrospective study. You would have to observe, like, war victims or something when they're eating, and the amount of disease they have compared to peacetime. It would be a difficult model of how you would research that. But I
Gotcha.
can tell you anecdotally from patients, over the years, and my mom has been doing for 40 years now. I've been doing for almost more than 10 years. Many of our patients do really well when we treat them with our technique, breaking that association between the trauma and the foods or the items. We have actually
Gotcha.
seen that actually happen, and we actually have lab work and data to support that things get better. In fact, we have some studies that we published on NAET as well,
Oh, nice.
in the official research realm. But I think, as you said, even if you don't believe it, even if it doesn't make sense,
It doesn't hurt.
by doing this habit, it calms you down.
Yeah.
And we can all agree reasonably that not arguing while you're eating, or not having bad thoughts could only help. I mean, it's
That's
not.
right.
I mean, I think you would be foolish to try to wait for a study to see if you're wrong eating in that manner. So that's
Yeah.
the only thing.
Yeah, just so everyone knows how I got started with this, I actually had an allergy to dust, and it was really bothering me, and I didn't know what was going on. So, and I was eating healthy, and I decided to, and I can't remember. This was about 8 years ago, I believe it was 7 or 8 years ago. I decided to go to a practitioner that does the NAET, which stands for not and forgive me for your last name here,
Sure.
Nambudripad's allergy
Good job.
elimination
That's
techniques.
right.
Right?
That's right.
That's what the NAET stands for.
Yes.
And
That's right.
so I went there, and it helped. Now, having said that, although I've been practicing naturopathic medicine for 20 years, and I've had some miracles that's happened to me. And that's why my very first podcast was on, talking to my naturopathic doctor. I'm still skeptical at times. That did help me, but it's funny when you're a skeptical person like me. At the back of your mind, you're going, well, how do I know it actually work? And it's funny because I haven't had that dust issue since doing that 8 years ago, but it's still at the back of my mind. And then I went because I had an allergic reaction to shellfish, specifically shrimp, like eating the shell. Okay. I can eat the actual shrimp, but if I eat the shell, like if I have a deep fried, I went to a Chinese restaurant and I had deep fried shrimp, including the shell. And then 8 hours later, I woke up and my tongue was itchy and scratchy and I fainted. And it scared me, right? I didn't know what it was. It happened again when I was eating some lobster bisque, and it happened again. And I said, okay, whoa. And I spoke to a friend of mine who's a medical doctor, and he said, the allergen is in the shell, right? And so, when they blended the bisque, maybe they might have blended the shells as well. Anyway, I went to a NAET practitioner, and I went there like I think twice, and I had to go back one more time. I never did go back, and excuse me, that was about 5 years ago, and I haven't had a reaction since. But I've been
You've eaten shellfish since?
Yes, but not the shells, right? Not the shells.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know
That's
if
fine.
I got rid of it because I was supposed to go back for one more treatment, but I don't know what happened. I got lazy or whatever.
That sounds like it sounds like it may not be proper NAT, to be honest with you.
Okay.
There since 2010, actually, we've found a lot of more information, and we've actually evolved our technique more precisely, especially for anaphylaxis or severe allergies, which is this what we're talking about.
Okay.
For this, there's a new protocol that we follow where we actually follow blood work, specifically an antibody called IgE,
Okay.
which actually you can test for. You take blood and you actually send it to a regular lab. You can do it in Canada as well, I'm sure. And it will tell you the levels of antibody that you have for a specific item. And with what we have now done since 2010 is we have we kind of modify the technique so it focuses on that blood work. Because we have found that with the standard testing methods and evaluation history that we do with NAT, it's not as objective enough. Before we subject the patient to eating the food, right? Like in other words, for you, Amar, we would not tell you to eat the shell until we can have some objective data to know that you have improved, right?
Gotcha.
So we don't want to put your life at risk. So for that, there's a blood test we can do actually, and you would need to do that. And it doesn't sound like that.
You're talking the blood test before and after? Is that?
So yeah, typically it would be best to do it before, obviously. Yeah, and so a lot of times now in our seminars, when we teach practitioners, especially with people who have a history of this kind of thing, we tell them before we do any treatments to do a panel of items, egg, shellfish, all these things, because we want to see if there's anything that might trap us. We don't want to fall into a mistake, basically. So it's sort of like a screening panel that we do first.
Okay.
And then if something is positive or high, that alerts us so that when we do the treatments that we are careful. And of course, after we do the treatments, you can also do a test afterwards. We have shown that it has been reduced or eliminated actually with our treatments. Okay. And that's part of the research that we have published. There's actually four or five studies that are on our website.
And have you personally helped someone who's had like a shellfish allergy?
Yes, I have helped anecdotally patients with shellfish and fish, both allergy, but I have published a study, which is on the website on my name. I actually published it myself on peanut allergy. Okay. Which is actually just as severe. In fact, it's worse. Usually peanut allergy is the worst of the bunch, usually. But this was a 19-year-old girl at the time that I treated, and she even had an oral challenge test, meaning she had the blood test, which was positive. They even did allergists typically give a little bit of peanut in the mouth to see if you react. That's the gold standard test, actually. Okay. Same thing with shellfish. That's what they would recommend, probably just to confirm it. She had a reaction, of course, and then she came to me for treatment. She heard about us, and I treated her for almost 2 years, constant treatment for almost 2 years. So that's the other thing, that's why I knew that this is not exactly appropriate. However, in your case, maybe your blood work is negative, and if it is negative, it will be a lot faster. Gotcha. But in her case, it was very high. So she required almost 2 years of treatment, and then after the 2 years, her blood work came down, as well as she passed the same oral challenge test. So the allergist was shocked that this happened. And I published that study. It's on our website.
Nice. And she hasn't, it hasn't come back.
So this was about, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, if I remember correctly. And I haven't spoken to her since, but I have not heard any issues about it.
Is that ever a possibility that it could come back? Have you ever?
No, when the blood work goes down essentially to zero, it is a cure, essentially. I don't like to use that word. Of course, medical doctors generally don't like to use that word. Yeah. However, it is more of a curative process as opposed to just treating and seeing if you're doing well and not confirming with the lab work. So that's why the lab work is really crucial. When the blood work comes down, that's why we can sort of safely tell you that you can maybe proceed and try. And of course you would always want to make sure an allergist is on board and understands everything. The best scenario would be to do the NAET treatments, get the lab work down, then go to the allergist for clearance, and then they can allow you to start eating the food again.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's pretty cool. And you said you actually went to medical school, you became a doctor, but then you rather than practicing being a medical doctor, you decided to follow in your mom's footsteps. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I finished medical school, and then I also did a 4-year residency in pathology,
Okay.
which is the field, where we do autopsies, we diagnose cancer. We're the experts in lab work. So this kind of blood test that I'm talking about, we are the experts in the entire hospital on that. We know how all the machines work and all of that kind of stuff. And I completed that, I finished that, graduated from that training program. And then I was going to go in that line of work, working on cancer, specifically diagnosing cancer and biopsies and things like this. But then at that time, that's when I realized that my mom's business, this technique was taking off and becoming so great. And she needed help as well. And I'm very close to my mom. And I personally benefited greatly from this. I mean, without this, I would not be alive, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
So when I was young, I was very sick. I had a lot of issues, and the doctors wanted to do a lot of surgery on my intestines, for example, because they had no idea why I was so sick. And my mom got me through everything. And so maybe all along I had a sense that I was going to do this, maybe, but I was so I enjoyed medicine, and I enjoyed pathology especially, that so much that I really wanted to do it. But I was at a crossroads, and then I decided to actually study acupuncture. So I studied acupuncture for 1 year. There's a short program for medical doctors here in California, which I finished.
Do you use acupuncture with the allergy?
Yes.
With the
So then after that in 2010, I was pretty much fully practicing apart from my mom on my own until about just last year. And during that time, yes, in many patients, I would use acupuncture as well. In some patients, especially children and pregnant women, we do not. But in many cases, we do use needles, but it's not necessary. NAT can be done without needles very successfully.
Gotcha. And as a child, you didn't go into details. Is there a reason? Is it personal? I was just curious, or if it's personal.
Yeah, no. So I was trying to give you the whole glimpse. So now, talking about that specifically, so I don't quite remember all the symptoms I had. Of course, I was very young, maybe 3 to 5 years of age. That's when I was the worst. But my mom, I think, recalls telling me I had digestive issues, a lot of skin rash, allergies to different foods, and things like this. And in her mind, she knew that I was reacting to a lot of things I was exposed to. But the doctors at the time, at this time, my mom was still sort of investigating and had not formed NAT yet.
Your mom became a medical doctor as well, correct?
So she studied chiropractic and acupuncture and got licenses in both.
Okay.
And then later, as I was going to college, she actually went back and studied medical school as well, just more for her own knowledge base. But she did not get licensed in it.
I see.
It was just more for her own. As I said, she's a really intense woman.
Gotcha,
And even now she's, working hard every day. So she's one of those kinds of people. So yeah, that's why, pretty much that's the way it goes. I think I have developed her tendencies because I actually went to law school as well.
Oh, did you? Wow.
A couple of years ago, I actually it's an internet law school. But I didn't finish. I didn't get my license or bar exam. I just did it more for my own education, but really more to help me. When I talk to people, like interviews, and when I'm more in public relations, pretty much,
Gotcha.
and talking to the other doctors and things about this. I just wanted to have more of a sense as what is appropriate to say, etc. So it helped me a lot in the way I communicate to people.
Gotcha. What do you say when you have skeptical friends and family that won't listen or whatever? Do you even bother, or what's your reaction?
Yeah, no, my mom definitely tries to push and tries to convince them and prove that she's right. She's very passionate about it. I over all those years of me watching her fall down and get up from all those experiences, I have come to the conclusion that it's not worth it for me to push and fight. I just continue saying what I do if someone's willing to listen. And for those who need help, I just help them. Those who want my help, I help them. So like, for example, you asked to interview me, so I was very happy. So I, quickly accepted, and I'm trying to explain to you. Others may not be so interested, and that's okay. But as I was trying to tell you in the beginning, is that I really now do feel that I am on the best way to explain it is, I know I am right in my mind. I know that what I'm doing is correct from all the experiences I've had, all the patients I've seen, my own family members as well, my son included. I know that what I'm doing is the right thing to do. It's just a matter of time before everyone else catches up.
Gotcha.
Basically, it would be like as if I was in the 1600s and I had an iPhone with me. And I knew that this iPhone is real, but everyone else thinks it's magic, voodoo, witchcraft. But I know that in 2020, everyone will be using the same thing. It's that kind of a process that I'm going through right now, actually.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
So let's say you meet 10 people that, come to your office and they want to, they've got some sort of allergy. How many of them do you typically help? And, why wouldn't one work versus the ones that do work, let's say?
Good question. Okay. So generally when I talk to a patient, I get their history. I see what is their intention of coming. There are many people who come that are not really sick. They're just looking to talk to someone or help with emotional issues or things like that. So when someone is not really having pathology, or the blood work is negative, as I said, or something like that, and it's more sort of a psychological type of, or a traumatic issue, those patients do very well with NAET. We have a technique where we, as I said, we break associations between traumas and events and things like this. And I think it's even better than most of the psychologists and psychiatric sort of treatments that are out there, to be honest with you. I have seen that, just speaking from my experience with my patients anyway. Patients who have late stage cancers, or very end stage autoimmune issues like ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, or very, very late stage diabetes where they're almost, basically going to die. Those kind of patients are very difficult for us to treat. Extremely difficult. And it may take many, many treatments, almost many in a day, actually, over the whole year in that kind of sense. They may get better, actually. I have seen actually many of the patients actually do improve. But we have not done enough research to show what is the effectiveness of, like, for example, stage 4 lung cancer, for example. That's very, very grave and difficult, even for NAET. Anything in between those two extremes, I would say about a 70% effectiveness rate.
Okay.
So, for example, something like what you were describing, where you have actual symptoms of anaphylaxis, and let's assume that your blood work is negative. If that person comes to me, that's a really good, as you're seeing yourself, a very good response rate. I would say even above 80% or so. Okay. If the same person with that same history comes with the blood work being positive, very high, like the patient I had, then it is still possible to get better, but it will take longer. For example, in my patient, it took almost more than 200 treatments. But eventually she was able to clear it and eat it if 1 gram of peanut, right? Yeah. Which is really not possible in most cases, to be honest, even if by immunotherapy, standard allergy treatments.
So she can eat peanuts like anyone else now?
When I last spoke to her, she was able to eat it, but she's still in her mind.
It's a mind.
Wanted it. She was doing it just so that she would never have to go to the emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But she would not change her diet for that specific. She didn't like peanut anyway, but she just was afraid that if she goes to a restaurant that she might even smell it and feel sick. So that all improved dramatically. And she was very passionate about it as well. She could have actually ended it a little bit earlier. We didn't really need the lab work to go down all the way, but it went down a significant amount, and she wanted that. And so she was happy with that. Other patients may have like lupus or thyroid issues, or body aches, back pain, these kind of things.
So there is a connection between like certain diseases, because you mentioned like cancer and so on. Do you find that sometimes there's a connection between that and having an allergy? Is that what?
Yeah, so right, exactly. So in this group that I'm talking about now, the sort of moderate disease, back pain or headache or thyroid issues, those typically, yes, we do see associations with many things. Either deficiencies that they're having in their food because they're allergic to the food, so they're not absorbing properly, or they could be actually allergic to different food items or environmental toxins that are causing issues. Okay. But in the extremes, so like in the cancer, the late stage cancer, those types of cases, it's harder for us to treat because the disease has progressed so much that even if there is an association, it's almost very difficult for the body to reverse itself. So that's why sometimes you might not see results in a very late stage cancer case, even though we know that there may be some association that we can try to address. And in the other extreme, emotional trauma, and especially associated with items, they do very well. So almost 100%, I would say, even they will feel some improvement by treating them. I see that over and over again.
That's amazing.
So that's the kind of range of spectrum of issues we sort of see.
Yeah, I was going through the book, and it was fascinating to me that, some of the things that was on this list, it says here, when one holds an allergen, one or more of the symptoms from the following list may be experienced, abdominal discomfort, anger, right? Anger, what's the connection with the anger one? Because I can, I'm pretty easygoing most of the time, but when I do, lose my.
So no, so when you read a book like that, when you see that list, it's not saying that everyone has that same exact reaction all the time to a certain thing. It's just saying that if you have that kind of reaction, let's say anger outburst, when you're in a certain room, let's say, for example, you're in your room right now that you're in, and that's when you're most angry. But when you go into the rest of your house and you feel more peaceful, it could be that there's that connection there. There's some sort of a subconscious, and in your case, you may not have it, but in somebody else, let's say listening to this podcast, they may see that. It's a sort of a hint for you to think about it. So instead of going on antidepressants and antipsychotics and or going to group therapy, counseling, and all, maybe change your atmosphere. Maybe change the things that you're eating. Maybe the fish is making you angry, or maybe the desk that you're working on there may be a connection. And so try something else. And if you see that there's a connection there, that's more information for the general person to have at their disposal, which is free. It's not expensive, and it's not harmful, easy to change to another room, right? So these are just little tips I think that book is trying to give people.
It's funny because, my wife thinks I'm a weirdo for what I'm going to share with you. If something, let's say I've got a desk, and this has happened to me before, where I would walk into this, the bed, and stump my chin, and it would, I just got so fed up, and I told her the bed has to go, or I'm just going to put up a barrier. I don't care if I destroy the bed, because and my philosophy is if I love something, but it doesn't love me back, it's gone, or I'm going to make sure that it doesn't bother me.
There you go. So there's a connection, anger connection with the bed.
So I went and I literally got a piece of wood, and I boarded it up so that I could not ever, hit my shin again. And my wife was like, "Oh my God, you're destroying the bed." I said, "You know what? I may be destroying it, but for now, I need to make sure that this doesn't happen again, because this bed is not loving me back."
Exactly. That's exactly what I think. That's interesting that you noticed that anger when you looked at the book. The first thing that you were basically telling me is the anger with that. I think subconsciously you know that already. That you have that connection with that. So this is exactly what and so this sounds very bizarre. I agree. And it's not what we are used to, but this is a different way of thinking that I think this is what I'm saying, that I do feel I am on the right path, because if more of us have this sort of openness to think in this fashion, we might be able to save marriages, might be able to save, the world peace. People will be less, less troubled by things, because these little things add up, actually. and it can lead to an outburst one day. So I think that's kind of what that is mentioning. So if you look at what your example you're talking about, your wife doesn't have that association.
No,
It's foreign to her, but for you, it's very clear in your mind what is causing your irritation in your brain.
Yeah.
So you see that, and you naturally removed the obstacle for the irritation for your brain.
Yeah.
That's exactly what. So you did not know NAET, but you were actually kind of doing it already.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's fascinating. I didn't realize NAT because I never read the book. I'm not a big reader,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I certainly, I was open to it, and
Yeah.
and just reading some of the testimonials, like one of them here, it says NAET is not just a treatment for allergies. It is truly the medicine of the future. The results and satisfaction are mind-blowing.
That is very well said.
Yeah, I can hardly believe it, even though I see the results over and over again each and every day, right? So,
and I can assure you 100%, knowing my mom, all of those testimonials are real people. She has treated so many. And in fact, I know many of those patients who would say things like that. And absolutely, I see emails even today. Emails come to me all the time. And actually, it's part of my job now is to answer patient emails, help our practitioners around the world, with any issues they may have. And I get so many, incredible emails on a daily basis, very inspiring. So that reminded me of one of those emails.
Now, you're in California. I guess if someone is looking for a practitioner, where would they go to your website, or would they just type in
the
NAET?
website is www.naet.com.
Okay.
And when you go there, there's options to find a practitioner. There's also an option to become a practitioner. So if you have any sort of licensure or certification in your country or state that allows you to provide therapy, basically legally, we don't want anyone to get into trouble.
That's right, yeah.
But if you're able to do so, this is a sort of post educational technique that you can add into your practice.
Yeah.
So we have medical doctors, nurses, acupuncturists, chiropractors who do this.
Yeah.
We even had some surgeons who have come and learned with us, and they use it before their surgery.
Wow.
So that it helps the scarring, healing. We have a famous surgeon in Colombia, South America, actually, who has taken our course, and he's a GI surgeon, and he uses NAT on a daily basis with his surgeries.
Wow. How can you explain, how does he do that? Or
so he naturally found that a lot of the allergies and associations with foods and even the metal with your cutting and all this kind of things can cause reactions in the body. And so he treats his patients for all the foods and things to get their body amped up, basically, so that when he does surgery, he gets better results. And he's doing really well. I actually haven't talked to him in quite a while, but I do refer patients to him.
Wow.
But yeah, he's doing quite well.
That's fascinating.
Right. Yeah, that's
fascinating.
One example. We have, of course, most of the people who do it are acupuncturists, I would say.
Okay.
And so they, in addition to their acupuncture practice, they do this NAT to help their patients with food allergies or sensitivities, or emotions, like we were talking about as well.
Gotcha. So they would go to the website, and there's a section where they would find a local practitioner.
Yes. So you can type in your zip code, or actually country. It's probably, if you're out of the US, like in Canada, for example, you can just type Canada and select, and you can see everyone there. There's a map also that can, guide you to find people. As I said, we have people in Iraq, Europe, we have many. Japan, we have quite a bit of people in Japan. Some in South America, Canada as well.
Now, this works whether you're a skeptic or not, right?
Yes. The only thing I would say is for the emotional aspects, so the emotional work that we do, of course, there has to be some sort of communication and openness to that. In that aspect of treatment, I do think it is best for the person to sort of follow instructions, do as the doctor is or the practitioner is asking to do.
So if you have a peanut allergy, for instance, sorry to interrupt, if you have a peanut allergy and I go to a practitioner, but I'm skeptical because my wife made me go, but I follow everything to the T. the likelihood is there's a 70% chance I would be cured of that. Is it?
So if you have a peanut allergy and you have blood work that's positive, okay, those two things. And then on top of that, you do follow everything that's said, including maybe even 1 or 2 years of treatment. Let's just say, assuming you do that. Yes, absolutely. The intention, the mental intention, or the skepticism is irrelevant in that aspect, because we follow the blood work and it does go down regardless of what they think. In fact, the patient I treated, the one that the study I published, she was a little bit skeptical at first. She didn't know if this would be worth the money or time to do. And so actually, as part of that, I had to make a deal with her. And I said, if you allow me to publish your study in a publication, I will give you free treatments. And then I was able to cajole her into doing so. In other words, she was a little bit skeptical herself, right? And but her results were fine. Also, on top of that, to sort of address this placebo, quote unquote, placebo effect, there is a large study with a control group on our website in children around the ages between 2 and 10, mainly 2 or 3, of autism, children with autism. And we even treated them using a surrogate. We don't even do the treatment directly on them. We do it through a surrogate. There's a process we do that. And that showed a dramatic improvement in the NAET group compared to the control. So they are not even aware, really. You cannot even say they're aware of what they're doing. They're not even old enough to have skeptic thoughts, right? So and they got better.
So these are autistic kids that had an allergy.
Yeah, so yeah, they were diagnosed as autism.
Okay.
But we in NAET, we consider that as to be associated with allergies or sensitivities to different things.
Oh, really? Autism?
Yes, and we treated those items. So that study is available on our website too. If you go onto our website, I think it's under the About section.
Okay.
If you click on About and then Studies, you can read all the studies there. But that one had 60 children, 60 children.
60 autistic kids.
Correct. Yeah. 30 children were in the NAET arm, and 30 children were in a control arm. The control arm did not receive NAET. They were just going through regular psychological counseling at the same time. Okay. And at the end of the study, there were, I think we did about 50 treatments. After the end of that process, the experimental or the NAET group was significantly greater improvement than the control group. I think there were only 4 children that did not do well, but so 26 out of 30, if I remember the data correctly, improved dramatically, where they were able to go to normal school.
Oh, so their autism, they weren't as autistic.
Pretty much went away. And then also on top of that, one of those children actually was my patient. He now maybe 22 or 23 years old, maybe now. But a few years back, I was still seeing him as an adult, basically. Okay. He was a music major in a local university here. So very good, right?
Wow. Yeah. Wow, that is fascinating.
So you should read you, Amar, as well as all your listeners, you should go and look at that research. It's on our website, and read it. And that shows you. So for example, taking your premise that skepticism or placebo may be involved, in this situation, it's not, obviously.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you have to have some sort of process of thinking and to be skeptical. So that can sort of, it's not definitive, of course, but in my opinion, it can rule out placebo effect.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. I say that because I have a friend who has a child, it's still a very young child, but they're concerned that as the child gets older, it's going to get worse and worse. And
one thing about that specifically, a couple of caveats. So in the study, we did not include anyone older than the age of 10. That is because we have found that by that time, it's more difficult for NAET to help. The brain is sort of formed, the nerves, the connections are already sort of formed. So younger than 10 is better. The other thing too is we did not accept anyone with severe allergies. So for example, shellfish allergy or something like that, because that requires a much longer process, as we were describing. And so it would not be fair to include that along with so these were just purely autistic children, no other issue, in a young age group.
So with this friend of mine that I'm thinking about, her child is 6 years old,
Okay.
and
Getting closer towards that age, but yeah, it's still okay.
yeah. Oh well, what is the ideal age?
So around, once you get closer to 10 years of age is when it's more difficult.
So six is
6 is still okay, but I mean, preferably would be between 2 and 5, I would say.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
I mean, better for them to do it faster rather than delay.
Okay, gotcha. And
Right.
so let's say, right, because she's in Toronto, I'm in Toronto. She wanted to do this. Would she? Could she do this remotely with you, or she would have to go see a practitioner?
So she would have to do it with a practitioner, and we have one of our best practitioners is in Toronto. Her name is Marlene Chappelle.
Okay.
I would recommend everyone go to her. She's actually an instructor. She's the instructor for Canada, all of Canada, actually. Okay. And we're trying to teach more people, of course, because it is hard. There are a lot of parts of Canada and US where there's no practitioner. But luckily in Toronto, there happens to be a very good one. And she's very good at autism, especially. So I would recommend.
How do you spell her name, or do you have her?
Yeah, so if you want, you can just also go to the website and just click Canada and search in Toronto, and you will find her there.
Perfect.
But her first name is Marlene, Marlene, and the last name is Chapelle, I believe.
Okay, gotcha. So someone comes to you, Roy, and they've got the allergy. Can you walk me through the 2-year program? What happens from the time you meet them, and and maybe give me an idea of the prices of something like that,
Yeah, so the prices is not something I can say for sure, because everywhere is different. I don't even know what Marlene, for example, charges, or
gotcha.
or what they, but it's, and also a medical doctor doing it, as opposed to, let's say, a acupuncturist. The prices will vary, even in the same city itself. So that you have to just call the practitioner and ask them. However, the process should be similar, which is, there's an initial evaluation, perhaps getting blood work done, all the records, all of that. And then talking to the patient, explain to them what is the outcome, the expectation, what are the commitments. It is like a therapy program. It's not like a pill that we just swallow and you come back in 3 months, that kind of thing. Sometimes it may be once a week. In most cases, it may be more than once a week because it's a more severe issue. And so almost like a program that you come back and you get repetitive treatments. Most cases take about, I want to say, 40 to 50 sessions. 40 to 50 sessions. That's, moderate illness. And it really, the treatment looks like a massage on the back. It looks very non-invasive. It would be hard for anyone to believe that this would even do anything, really.
Yeah.
But it is literally.
But it's like acupuncture. If you've had,
right. Yeah, it's acupressure. Acupressure.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, but the point I was making is that if you've never had acupuncture, because I was extremely skeptical with acupuncture, but I've had some crazy stuff, like, for instance, showing up at my naturopathic doctor's office, barely walk because, my neck muscle is all seized up. Yeah. And, half an hour later, I'm walking out there. So, you know what I mean?
So that is more of an immediate effect that as Westerners, I'll call us considered quote unquote Westerners. We are ingrained with this idea of immediacy. That's why Instagram, all this stuff, YouTube, we need everything immediate. If you have that mindset, NAT will be very difficult. I'll be honest, because it's not designed to be an immediate thing.
Yeah.
It's more designed to be a long-term permanent result that we find by rewiring the brain. Basically, it's kind of the way I think of it. Almost like a weekly resetting of the nerve connections with the body and the mind. That's kind of a general way of describing it. And the more times you do that, the more your body is able to go back to homeostasis, where it was meant to be. And I think a lot of this we still do not understand as scientists.
That's right.
When an emotion happens, how come my shoulder hurts? It doesn't make really sense, physically. But if you look at the mind-body connection, this is kind of what we're dealing with, and with food associations as well. So the more times you deconnect that association, let's say with your heartburn with the alcohol that you're drinking, let's say, okay, when you cut that association more times, then that heartburn does not come when you drink that alcohol. Not that we are wanting everyone to drink alcohol, but I'm saying in some people, they drink 1 glass a day and they have no problem.
Everyone is different.
Yeah. Other people drink 1 glass and they are deathly ill. So that explanation, Western medicine has no answer for, other than genetics. You can say genetically this person is like this, but that still also doesn't make sense, because even some people who have that gene may not react that way either. So NAT really answers a lot of check boxes that we are looking for in this day and age. It's just a matter of people willing to try it and see if it works. So I would say for all the skeptics out there, like you're mentioning, if you are skeptical, that's great. I actually applaud that. You should be skeptical. That protects you from harm. But at the same time, don't let it from
stop you.
Preventing you from getting help that you need.
Got you. Well, that's awesome. I really appreciate you spending this time with me and educating me on this stuff.
Of course.
I'm glad I saw this book and decided to give you a call. Sure. And I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people if they're.
I hope so. Yeah, that'll be great. If it can. So and again, our website has most of the information there. www.naet.com. And hopefully my personal goal is to try to get as many people trained as legally possible, so that a person out there that's listening to you right now doesn't have to feel bad that there's no one within 100 miles of them.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea here.
I hear you. And does it always take up to 2 years, or could it be a lot
less?
No,
that's just in that case, because in that case she had a very severe life-threatening peanut allergy. So that's
is there like an average?
So as I was saying, on average about 50 sessions. So if you do it, maybe like if you go every day of the week, that's what is that? 50 days.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, gotcha. So you could be like that, or if you do once a week, it might be a little bit longer. Gotcha. Some people do get better within a few sessions, actually.
Okay.
Kind of like what you're describing for yourself, actually.
Okay.
You did not have 50 sessions, it sounds like.
No.
And you actually improved, correct?
Yeah.
So there you go. So I'm just giving you like the very grave prognosis, but many people do actually feel improvements faster.
Awesome. Well, listen, Roy, thank you so much again. I've got your information here. I'll pass it on to my friend in this video and audio. And,
yes, hopefully it helps.
Yeah, and here's to a future where the new norm is people, really embracing their inner health,
yes,
and taking care of themselves and being open to helping.
Right, take care
body.
of the mind and the body, not just the body, but the mind as well. That's the key thing.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much. Have yourself a wonderful weekend, and somehow we'll be in touch again. Okay.
Okay, sure. Yes, anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.